Did you know that with a variant rule in the Dungeon Master's Guide, skill checks aren't tied to ability scores? That's why they always specify a strength athletics check in the format of ability score parentheses skill. The example I remember first seeing is an intelligence sleight of hand check in order to tie a complicated knot, but I think most commonly used is a strength intimidation check. I see people homebrewing that you can use strength for intimidation all the time, but it's actually raw. So why the title? Why an athletics check? Athletics. Can you tell I only came up with the title from a typo on a previous video? So why athletics checks? Simple. To push the system to its extreme. Give me wisdom athletics checks where it's not about how physically fit you are, but taking advantage of the path of least resistance. Give me charisma arcana checks where you're trying to convince an elderly sage that they should help you by impressing them with your arcane knowledge. Sure, you can make those examples a wisdom perception or a charisma persuasion check, but how many times do you roll those in a given session? There are a few skills in D&D which, far and above, are used more often than the rest. Perception is probably the biggest, followed by stealth, insight, persuasion, and maybe deception. That might change based on your group, but these seem to be the most commonly used skills in the dozens of games I've played and ran. The idea of mixing which ability score is used for each skill isn't to screw someone over because they invested in these anchor skills though. This shouldn't replace the ability to make your standard checks, however it should give the option for other characters to utilize those less frequently used skills in actually relevant circumstances. How often do your players get to roll history or nature checks? Maybe they do it all the time. Or maybe you have players who took a proficiency in it because it fit their character, but because of the game they never got to use it. This gives them the opportunity to use those skills in interesting ways. But it also sets the precedent for future characters, assuming you plan on allowing this fluidity going forward. If your players know during character creation they can use skills in place of one another, you no longer have the need for everyone to be proficient in perception and stealth and insight. How many times when you weren't proficient in stealth were you the sole reason the party failed its group stealth check? And in those circumstances, did you even get the opportunity to use whatever skill you chose over stealth with anywhere near the same regularity? Now, that's a loaded question, since I think the way most groups run stealth as a Boolean pass-fail for the entire party can be improved, but that's a different video. The point I want to make is that setting the precedent of mixing and matching ability scores with skills removes the pressure and encourages more diverse skill sets. And in case you're worried about your players abusing this or doing nonsensical actions, you can always just say no! My recommendation would be to give players full range on suggesting any combination of ability score and skill they want, but they have to explain why it makes sense to you before they get to roll. And if it doesn't make sense, tell them, sorry, gotta do better.
Oh, shit.
But then give them a second chance to pitch something else. Because remember, it's not to screw them over, it's to encourage ingenuity. So long as you're being fair in your judgments, most players will put forward combinations that they think would be cool or realistic. And if you have a player who tries to abuse the system, talk to them. Tell them that you feel they're exploiting it. If they're a jerk about it, that's its own issue. But if they're just a min-maxer, maybe work with them. Challenge them to convince you each time they want to use their broken skill combination, and be open to being convinced. At the end of the day, it's a game. If someone's having fun feeling useful and no one else has a problem with it, let them feel useful. Have fun.